The transport ship landed with a gentle hum, its engines cutting off as the final thud of its descent echoed through the massive docking bay. As the hatch opened, the crisp air of an alien world swept in, carrying with it the unfamiliar scent of metallic and organic compounds. A new chapter had begun for Sergeant John Reed. He stood, legs stiff from the long journey, as his boots hit the alien soil of the outpost. This wasn't Earth. This was somewhere deep within a galactic frontier, and he was to be part of something much bigger than himself. The outpost was vast, made up of structures that glimmered in the pale light of the twin moons hanging low in the sky. Strange, towering buildings shaped like inverted cones and jagged spires stretched high above, pulsing with soft blue light. Around him, a small group of humans, fellow recruits from Earth, were scattered, going about their duties. John was part of a new wave of soldiers, explorers, and engineers sent to assist with maintaining human presence in this part of the galaxy. The base was quieter than expected, a stark contrast to the bustling activity he'd imagined. The few soldiers who passed by didn't meet his gaze. Their eyes were focused, perhaps too focused, on their tasks. John couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but he dismissed the thought as the result of his nerves. After all, this was his first assignment. A tall figure approached, and John straightened his posture instinctively. Oh. It was Colonel Mira Voss, the commanding officer of this outpost. Her presence commanded attention. She wasn't tall by alien standards, but her posture and aura made her seem like someone who towered over others. Her uniform, adorned with symbols he didn't recognize, gave her an air of authority. "Sergeant Reed," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Welcome to Outpost Echo 7.
You'll be assigned to a special task. The assignment is
unconventional, but it is important for the future of our relations with the alien factions in this sector." John nodded, trying to hide the confusion that crept into his mind. Unconventional? He had heard rumors of strange missions, but none that sounded like this. "Come with me," she ordered, turning on her heel and walking toward one of the tall metallic structures. John quickly followed, his boots echoing against the metal ground. Inside the building, the lighting was dimmer, casting shadows across the walls that seemed to stretch unnaturally. It was cold, and the scent of the air inside was different from the outside. There were no windows, only smooth, polished surfaces and sleek technology he hadn't seen before. They walked in silence for a few minutes, before arriving at a large circular room. In the center was a massive hollow screen, displaying a map of the galaxy, with several highlighted sectors blinking in different colors. "Here," Colonel Voss said, tapping the screen to shift the map. It zoomed in on a small planet located on the edge of a distant star system. The planet was unfamiliar to John, and he wondered why they were focusing on it. "This," she said, "is the homeworld of the Xyrelians, the alien species we've been in contact with for the past several months. Their queen, the ruler of this species, is, well, she is central to their diplomacy. We have an opportunity to strengthen our bond with them, and your first assignment is critical to that effort." John frowned. Strengthened bonds? With an alien species? He had heard whispers of strange missions, of diplomacy, but nothing that could have prepared him for what came next. Colonel Voss didn't seem to notice his confusion. Instead, she continued, "Your assignment is simple, Sergeant, but it is of utmost importance. You are to spend the night with the alien queen. This is part of an ancient tradition among the Xyrelians. The queen, her name is Zanara, requires this ritual to establish a bond of trust with outsiders. It's a sacred event in their culture. It's not sexual. It's symbolic, a test of character, trust, and loyalty. You will stay the night in her chambers, speak with her, and represent humanity in this critical moment." John's heart seemed to stop. His first task as a soldier of the new frontier wasn't to engage in combat, not to repair a ship, or even to scout unknown territories. No, it was to spend the night with an alien queen. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Did I hear that correctly? Spend the night with her?" Colonel Voss gave him a sharp look.
Yes, Sergeant, the Queen will decide whether humanity is worth forming an alliance with based on this encounter.
"It's a diplomatic mission, one that could shape the future of our race in this sector. You've been chosen for your discipline, your intelligence, and your ability to represent Earth.
Do not take this lightly."
John's mind raced. He had no idea what to expect. This was not what he had imagined when he signed up to join the Earth Outpost initiative. He'd been ready for any challenge, but this felt too surreal. Yet the weight of the responsibility was undeniable. This wasn't just a meeting. This was a defining moment. What if he failed? What if he said the wrong thing or made the wrong move? Colonel Voss seemed to read his thoughts. "Do not worry. The Queen is not a monster. She is not a threat. You'll find that the Xerelians are more complex than you can imagine. They value trust, sincerity, and honor above all else. That's why you've been selected. You must meet her with an open mind and an open heart." John swallowed hard.
"Yes, ma'am."
Colonel Voss gave him a curt nod.
"You'll leave for the palace at dawn."
"Rest well. You'll need it." With that, she turned and left the room, leaving John standing there, trying to process what he had just been told. He stared at the map of the galaxy, the small blinking lights showing sectors of space he would soon become familiar with. But it wasn't the stars he was focused on. It was the Xerelian Queen. What kind of test was this? What kind of encounter awaited him? He couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and excitement. The unknown was terrifying, but also thrilling. This could be the beginning of something big, something that would change the future of humanity forever. He just hoped he was ready for it. As he walked back to his quarters, the sound of his boots was the only noise in the quiet outpost. 1,000 questions filled his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just been altered forever. Tomorrow, everything would change. John woke up with a start. The thin sheets of his bunk were tangled around his legs, and for a moment he wasn't sure where he was. His heart pounded in his chest. The events of yesterday, his unexpected assignment, the strange mission, the mysterious alien queen, flooded back to him all at once. He had barely slept. The sterile, dimly lit room of the barracks felt suffocating. John sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes as the weight of the upcoming task settled in. His fingers brushed against the smooth surface of the table beside his bed, feeling the texture of the alien wood that had been transported from the Xerelian homeworld. He had been told to familiarize himself with their culture, but how could he prepare for something as bizarre as this? How could anyone? After a long moment of silence, he swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood up. The cold floor against his bare feet made him flinch, but he ignored it. He needed to focus. There was no turning back now. He had been chosen for a reason, and there had to be something about him that had earned Colonel Voss's trust. He had to believe that. The door to his quarters slid open with a soft hiss. A figure stood in the doorway, and John's heart skipped a beat. It was Lieutenant Harper, one of the higher-ranking soldiers at the outpost. Harper's face was unreadable, but there was a certain respect in his eyes as he looked at John. "Sergeant Reed," Harper said, his voice low but firm. "The transport's ready. It's time." John nodded, his throat dry. He felt a lump form there, but he swallowed it down. He had trained for months, for moments like these, tough, dangerous, unpredictable. But nothing had prepared him for this. Spending the night with an alien queen. A test of character, trust, and honor. His mind raced, his thoughts a whirlwind. What did the queen want from him? Why was he chosen? Harper seemed to read his thoughts. "Don't worry, Reed," he said, stepping aside to allow John to pass. "You'll do fine. Just keep your wits about you. And remember, this isn't about her.
It's about you. You're human, and that's what matters here.
John tried to muster a smile, but it felt forced. Thanks, Lieutenant. You've got this. You wouldn't be going if they didn't believe in you. With a final nod, John followed Harper out into the corridor. The walls were lined with panels of soft blue light, and the air was crisp and artificial, recycled by the Outpost's life support systems. Everything felt so cold, and yet there was a strange warmth to it. Perhaps it was the unknown, the promise of what was to come. Maybe it was the sheer weight of the task ahead. The transport ship was waiting outside, a sleek silver vessel that hovered a few inches off the ground, its engines humming softly. John didn't need to ask for the destination. He knew. The palace of the Xyrelian Queen awaited him. As they approached the ship, the transport door opened automatically, and John stepped inside. It was a short journey, only a few minutes to the Xyrelian palace, but it felt like an eternity. The silence in the shuttle was heavy, the tension palpable. John couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into something that was beyond his control. The shuttle touched down with a soft thud, its engines powering down in a series of quiet whirs. The door opened, and a flood of light poured into the craft. A dozen or so armed Xyrelian guards stood outside, their long, lithe bodies poised and ready. They weren't hostile, but their presence was undeniably intimidating. A tall figure stepped forward from the group. She was unmistakably Xyrelian, her skin a deep shade of silver blue that shimmered in the light. Her eyes were wide and curious, yet there was an air of calm that surrounded her, like she had seen it all before and wasn't fazed by the unexpected. "Sergeant Reed," she said in a voice that was strangely melodic, "you are expected. Follow me." John did as instructed, trying to steady his nerves as he followed her into the palace. The architecture was breathtaking, surreal and alien, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch endlessly. Everything about the palace seemed to pulse with energy, as though the walls themselves were alive. He had never seen anything like it. They walked through the grand hall, passing statues and artifacts that seemed to tell a story of a long and rich history. The Xyrelians were an ancient species, and their culture was steeped in traditions that went back millennia. John had been briefed on their history, but nothing prepared him for the sense of awe that washed over him as he took in the palace's vastness. Finally, they reached a large door at the end of the hall. The guard in front of it stepped aside, allowing John to enter. The room inside was unlike anything he could have imagined. It was vast and circular, with a high ceiling that seemed to open into the stars themselves. The floor was made of a smooth, reflective surface, and in the center of the room sat the Xyrelian Queen. Queen Zanara was unlike any being John had ever seen. She was tall, her body slender yet powerful, and her eyes were the color of deep space, black, but filled with an almost overwhelming intensity. Her presence was commanding, but it was also serene. She exuded an aura of wisdom and strength, a being who had seen more than anyone could comprehend. John stood still, unsure of what to do or say. This was it, his first real encounter with the leader of an alien species. "You are human," Zanara said, her voice smooth and soft. "I have heard much about your people." John nodded, his voice caught in his throat. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'm honored to be here." The Queen's lips curved into the smallest of smiles, a gesture that felt both comforting and unsettling at once. "You are nervous. I can feel it."
John swallowed hard. I didn't expect
any of this. Zanara studied him for a long moment, her gaze unblinking. "You are not alone in that, but you are here now. And here, in this moment, there is much to learn." For a moment, neither of them spoke. John stood, waiting for the next move, the next instruction. but Zanara seemed content to simply observe him.
It was then that he realized she wasn't expecting anything from him. At least, not yet.
This encounter wasn't a test of physical strength or intellect. It was a test of something deeper, a test of character, of trust. "You will stay with me tonight," she said softly. "We will speak. And in speaking, you will understand what your people are truly capable of." John's mind raced, but he nodded. There was no turning back now. Whatever this night held, it would be a defining moment, not just for him, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. The night seemed to stretch on forever as John stood there, unsure of what to say or do next. Queen Zanara remained seated, her posture regal and composed, as if she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. John felt his palms begin to sweat, and he wiped them on his pants, trying to calm his nerves. The room around him was silent, except for the soft hum of the palace's energy system, the quiet click of distant machinery. "You are wondering why you're here," Queen Zanara said, her voice soft but powerful, as if she had read his thoughts. Her gaze never left him, her eyes filled with an ancient wisdom that made him feel both small and significant at the same time. John nodded slowly, unsure of how to respond. I don't understand. I've been told I'm here to establish trust between our people, but I don't know what that means." "What am I supposed to do?" The Queen's lips parted slightly, and she gave a small smile. "Trust is not something you can easily define, human. It is something you feel, something you earn. You are here not just as a soldier, but as a representative of your species. And your people have much to prove." John felt a knot tighten in his stomach.
"What exactly do you mean by that?"
The Queen stood up slowly, her movements graceful and fluid, like water flowing through a stream. She took a few steps toward him, and John instinctively took a small step back. There was an unspoken power in her presence, something that made him feel both intimidated and in awe. "You humans are new to this galaxy," she said, her tone calm and deliberate. "You come from a distant planet, with little understanding of the ancient ways that govern the balance of power in the universe. You seek allies, but do you understand the price of such alliances?" John opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. He had been briefed on the importance of diplomacy, the need for strong alliances, but the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Was he truly ready to represent humanity in this way? Was he prepared for the responsibility that lay before him? "I don't know if we're ready," John admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "We've only just begun reaching out to other species. We don't know what the future holds." Zanara studied him for a long moment. Her eyes seemed to pierce through him, searching for something beyond the surface. Then, without warning, she turned and walked toward a nearby table. On it, there was a collection of strange glowing objects that John couldn't even begin to comprehend. She picked one up and turned it over in her hands. "Humans are young, yes," she said softly, her voice almost to herself. "But that is not always a weakness. You are capable of great things. You have proven that, but your potential is still untapped, still uncertain. It is not power that will make you an ally to the stars. It is trust, and trust is built not through strength, but through understanding." John looked at her, trying to digest her words. He had always been taught that strength was the key to survival, but now he was beginning to see that strength alone would not be enough to secure humanity's place among the stars. "How can we build trust?" he asked, his voice more confident now. Zanara turned back to him, her eyes locking onto his. She held the glowing object in her hand, and it cast a faint light across her face. "You begin by listening. You begin by learning, not just about me or my people, but about the universe around you. The stars, the planets, the species you encounter. They are not enemies. They are part of a vast, interconnected web. To break that web is to tear apart the fabric of the cosmos. John stepped forward, intrigued by her words.
And how do we learn? You will spend the night with me, Zanara said, her voice steady. But it will not be a night of idle conversation or empty pleasantries.
I will teach you what you need to know, but it will require patience.
And it will require your trust.
John nodded, though he still felt unsure. What kind of lesson could she teach him? What was the true nature of the task before him? He had no answers, but he knew one thing. He had to try. This was his mission. This was his moment to prove that humanity could be more than just a fleeting presence in the galaxy. The Queen gestured for him to sit, and John did so, his muscles tense as he tried to remain composed. Zanara took a seat opposite him, the glow from the strange object she held casting an eerie light across her features.
Tell me about your people, Sergeant Reed, she said, her voice warm but commanding.
Tell me what drives humanity. What is it that makes you so unique? John paused for a moment, thinking carefully about how to answer. It wasn't a simple question. What made humanity unique? He thought about the history of Earth, the struggles, the victories, the way humans had come together in the face of adversity. But there was something more, something deeper. We're survivors, John said, his voice gaining strength. We've been through wars, famine, disease, and yet we always find a way to come together. We push forward, no matter the odds. We adapt, we learn from our mistakes. Zanara nodded, a thoughtful expression on her face. Survival. Yes, that is what defines your species. But it is not the only thing that drives you, is it? John frowned, unsure of what she meant. I don't understand. The Queen leaned forward, her gaze intense. Humans do not survive just for the sake of survival. You survive because you seek meaning. You seek connection. You reach out to others, not because you must, but because you desire to understand the universe. That is what makes you unique, Sergeant Reed. It is your curiosity, your desire to know. John felt a surge of understanding. She was right. Humans didn't simply fight to survive. They fought to explore, to grow, to reach beyond the boundaries of their world. And that desire to understand, to make connections, was what had brought him here. It was why he had accepted this mission, why he had become part of this grand experiment in intergalactic diplomacy. We want to connect, John said slowly. We want to belong. We want to know that there's more out there, beyond our world. And we want to be part of it. Zanara smiled, a rare, genuine smile. And that is why I have chosen you, Sergeant Reed. You may not fully understand your role yet, but you are on the right path. Humanity has much to offer, and much to learn. And tonight, we will begin that journey together. For the first time since arriving at the palace, John felt a sense of peace settle over him. The weight of the task still hung heavy, but he was beginning to see the path ahead. This was more than just a mission. It was an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to prove that humanity could stand side by side with the stars. As the hours passed, they spoke more, sharing stories of their people, their histories, their dreams. Zanara taught him of the ancient ways of the Zerelians, their connection to the universe, and the delicate balance that kept their world intact. John listened intently, absorbing every word, knowing that this night was just the beginning. It was not the end of his mission, but the first step towards something much greater. And for the first time since arriving at the outpost, John felt ready for whatever came next.